being able to just get in to influence their data so that then they start shifting their resources to build systems that are more equitable for us. And so that's just the beginning of it. And like I was blown away when the guy who's the head of community there shared it with us. And I was just like, this is a start, right? But we need to push more Black people, more women, more men, more kids into the metaverse so that we can start changing how the technology is built, you know, definitely giving our voice, of course, not giving away too much IP, right? But influence it, but not only influencing, getting inspiration and start building our own.
Hello, and welcome to the Bold Black Girls Podcast. I'm Aries.
And I'm Kim.
And we have a very special, I said it about every guest, but they are special. Like this is, you know, our tech series. I don't know what we're calling this yet. We'll probably, by the time we get done, we'll have an actual name for like what we want to call this, but it's all about tech because we get so many questions about how to get into tech and all these different tech things. And there's so much going on that no one person is going to know everything about all the things. So we jumped into our network and said, who do we know that knows stuff about these different topics that we don't have any idea about? And I'm super excited about this one because I want to know. These are all real questions. Like these are not questions that we just like pulled out of nowhere. These are real, legit questions that we have. And we have Miss Bianca J. Jackson in the house. Welcome to the Bold Black Girls Podcast.
Hey.
Hey. So Bianca, her work in tech, digital marketing, and DEI has landed her speaking opportunities at South by Southwest, Digital Summit Philadelphia, and Tech Inclusion New York. She's been featured in Forbes, Washington Post, Tech Republic, and one of her Metaverse projects, USA Today's The Wall VR, won a Pulitzer Prize in 2018. So this ain't no joke, y'all. Like this is the real deal. We got the people that can have the conversations, okay? Official. So now she advises businesses and organizations on how to leverage Web3 to enhance their strategies. And we're super excited to have you here today. So welcome again.
I'm excited to be here. And when I got your message, I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. I'm doing this.
Yes, we appreciate that because we know time, especially in this day and age, is really hard to come by. I'm sure if you are over here doing all these different projects, that you could be using your time to invest in those things. So we appreciate you coming to.
She got Pulitzers.
I know. Share information with us because I'm very curious to clarify what the metaverse is.
Exactly. So we're gonna talk about the metaverse, Web3, all that. Let's get started because I want to jump right on into. I know people got these questions, so we want to know just as much as.
And listen, I work at a tech company, NFTs, Web3, blockchain, crypto. I'm like, okay, it's a lot to learn.
It is a lot. So tell us, like, what is the doggone metaverse?
Well, most people, the easiest way to understand is the first level is like this virtual world. Right. So part of it is virtual world where you can bring digital assets in. You can have real people go in as their avatar and interact and learn and teach and do all these amazing things. Right. So think about it as being kind of like a counterpart to like regular me. So it's just online. And so I like to describe it first as virtual world, and then there's some augmented reality components into it. And so there's so much that people say are elements of the metaverse. So you have gaming, events, Alexa, Siri, like think all this emerging technology kind of coming together, but you can kind of just know that you're already in it. A lot of times people think that they're not. So if you're using the filters on social media, so on Instagram, TikTok, so the bunny ears, and you're playing the games where the car shows up on top of your head, that's augmented reality. So, and your kids playing Roblox and Sandbox, you're already there. And so it's this thing that most of us have already been in, but didn't know we were in because somebody slapped a new name on it. So it's leveraging virtual reality, augmented reality, and like you said, cryptocurrency, all of that stuff. So yeah, that's what it is.
So we already in it. It's like the Matrix. It's like you're in
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think I would get it until I bought an Oculus for the holiday. So I was like, okay, now
Mhm.
Metaverse.
But did you say metaverse or did you say virtual reality? You weren't saying metaverse back then. Because I don't think when I bought the Oculus, I was thinking meta. Like, I don't feel like until Meta changed their name
I know.
that I
That's
really
true.
wasn't
Mhm.
thinking like metaverse, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, most people didn't, right? And so I would tell everyone it's a new branded term. It's the same thing what happened with cities, right? So you may have like a bad part of the city, somebody slaps a new name on it, they clean it up a little bit, and now it's like everybody wants to live there. So it's all this technology that already existed for years and years. It's just a rebranded term. So metaverse, and when Facebook changed their name, most people thought Facebook was the metaverse. It is not. They just have one world that Kim, your face is hilarious.
Well,
They just have one environment that people can go to, but there's literally hundreds. But go ahead.
okay.
Yeah, because see, our
Yes.
church, we've been pretty. I used to be a part of the technology ministry at our church, which is One Community Church. We have
Yes.
5 locations in the Texas area. Visit us one day.
In the metaverse.
In the metaverse. So we started church in the metaverse like earlier this
Mm-hmm.
year, I think it was. And because my pastor is always like thinking way ahead, like he is a real visionary, and especially when it comes to technology as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I got on my Oculus and was like, let me go in here and see what's going on and they do it in the sandbox, like you were talking about. And I only learned this stuff because I just click on the thing and then, you can make a little avatar, have your little outfit and go in the lobby and all that. But do you have to have an Oculus to be in the
No.
Okay.
No. So Kim, you look like you're blown away again. So
we learning for real.
I think the Oculus, that's what you needed to get. Like, that's your entry ticket. Admit me.
No,
I got the Oculus.
so here's the thing. So 6 to 7 years ago, yeah, you needed it. Like when I started my work in virtual reality. What has happened over the 6 to 7 years is that people are now creating experiences and creating environments that you can use your computer and you can use your phone. So literally, there's no excuse for anybody not being able to get into the metaverse. Like you literally have the tools in your pocket every day.
Okay, so you said we can use our phone. So is that like an app?
It depends. So the different worlds are built differently. So some of them are apps, some of them are, web-based. And so it just depends. It depends on which ones you try to get onto.
Because you mentioned Roblox. So my
Right.
boys have been playing that I asked them, I said, how long have y'all been playing Roblox for real? And they were like, probably like 7 years or something like that. Or I think he said 6 years. I'm like, that's a lot of years that you've been in this space. And I've been hearing Roblox as a part of the metaverse and that they're using a lot of that technology to help build these worlds and stuff. I said, oh, y'all, we got to get this monetized. This is, y'all trying to monetize something. I'm like, but no, I'm like, that really shows some education in a space that is not really like out there. And they don't use VR at all on that. They're doing that just straight from either their iPad, phone, or the computer.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so there actually is monetization in it already. So if you're giving them money for Roblox, they get in the Robux. That's what it's called. Robux. There's commercialization already baked into it. And I think what's really fascinating is that everyone thought that their kids were just playing games and not realizing that tech companies were training your kids to be the next generation of workers.
Wow.
Right. And so like we're like, get off that damn game, right? Yeah. Whereas like they're literally right. They're building games to play with their friends who are far away. Like the pandemic did nothing for young people. Like they just went onto these virtual worlds and just start building and start connecting and start learning and Aries, you know exactly what I'm like.
Yes.
It didn't phase them because they're like, oh, we can still do the same stuff that we were doing. Now we don't got to go to school and we don't got to go outside. This is perfect.
And it actually built the network. Like my son, I signed one of them up for a Roblox coding class, right? At the end of the class, which they did it for like a week, but the end of first day, he was in here playing and he's in Discord and all this. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? He was like, him and like 5 of the kids were playing together. They just started playing the games. I said, y'all supposed to be learning how to build the stuff. And they were now, that was in 2020. They are still playing together. Those same kids that live all over the world, really. You know, I'm like, you got friends that live in different states and stuff.
So this is like virtual pen pals. Because I don't have any.
Like,
friend, right? So I'm thinking, I have my little godson. I'm like, who are you talking to? Like, you're talking to strangers. That is not safe. Get off of that, and you're overstimulated. Disconnect. Go color. Okay. I'm right there with you because I was like, this is too much connectivity. Too much access. And I was like, get out of my room because I don't want them to know where you are in my room. Go out there
you are in the room. Oh my Lord. See, she sounds just like don't she sound like one of them old ladies? You sound like a boomer right now.
Yes. Yeah, you do sound like a boomer.
There,
but here's the thing. Yeah, but here's the thing. While they're in there connecting with their friends, they are building the worlds. And so I want to say that the average age range for developers on Roblox is like 16 to like 21 or 22. So, Kim, your facial expressions are everything.
I'm a curious person, so sometimes, when I'm processing it comes out. So basically, for these skills and they can have careers out of this, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So even the young people who are on Roblox specifically, like they can bypass college. There are people paying them to build worlds for them.
Yes.
And see, this is what we don't know. And this is what we're going to get into and how we can do this today with the people our age, as well as we prepare the next generation.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So I've heard Web 3. What is that? And what is the correlation to the metaverse?
Okay. So I'm going to make it very simple, right? Because like I told you, I'm a translator for most people. Web 3 is basically the third iteration of the internet. Start there. You already know what the internet is, right? So the first generation of the internet was literally web pages with words on them. That was it. So if you remember from the 90s, you might go to the library, the dial-up situation, right? And you would go read stuff. Like you just went to read and research. That was it. The second generation of the internet, think more like social media. So not only are you reading, you're connecting, right? And so the third generation of the internet, it kind of centers around these couple of things: ownership, so being able to prove ownership; decentralization, so being able to share information no matter where you go. So in Web 2, you have 2 big organizations that pretty much control a lot of data, as well as some other ones. So Google and Facebook, right? So they don't share their data with nobody else, not really. And so this third iteration of the internet, people are trying to build systems where we can just share things openly. So that's why you got like the blockchain, which is a ledger, and people can see the transactions and who owns what. Those are the things that, are really important when it comes to Web3. And so how does that tie into the metaverse? Think the metaverse more of like a virtual space of like a physical place, right? Think Web3 of like how you use it. So like the digital assets that are in there, like NFTs that you can probably put in a virtual gallery and have people go inside the gallery to go view the artwork, right? You have tokens, right? So people are creating different currency. You got Bitcoin and Solana and Ethereum and all that. But then you also have tokens, and tokens are kind of similar to think Chuck E. Cheese. So back in the day when you went to Chuck E. Cheese and you gave them your money and they gave you tokens that you couldn't spend anywhere else other than in there. So it's almost like we're using Web3 to create new economy, literally. Right. And so there's some really fascinating stuff. I don't want to get too technical, right? But I just want to explain it in a way of like, just think about metaverse is where you go. Web3 is how you use it.
I like that because what they were, a lot of what you hear about is, we're plugged into all these social media platforms that we do not own. we build up this followership,
Yeah.
and you might have 1 million followers, but if something happened to that social media platform, done, you're out. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
So people would
Mm-hmm.
start telling you to
Mm-hmm.
encourage people to get a website and get people to sign up for their email list so they know who their people are and stuff like that. So this spot, it sounds like Web3 is kind of like now you can start owning your space in a way where now you know who your customers are, who your people are, your followers and stuff like that. Is that kind of like
Absolutely.
okay?
And so there's a really great example. There's a gentleman who produces content. He created a whole community around content, but getting people to buy into the content through tokens. So he's able to monetize what he puts out on the internet and kill your face.
She's gonna let you know how she feel, okay?
Yeah, I love it though. I love it. But you can find new ways to monetize your own information. And so that was the biggest problem with Web 2 is that you are on platforms like Facebook or you're putting your search data into Google or you're putting up websites and blogs. But at the end of the day, sometimes in the terms and conditions, you don't own the stuff that you upload to these different spaces, right? Even Clubhouse, even if you go inside their terms and conditions, they record everything.
They
So you don't own
They
that
even
stuff
before
that's
we knew
do.
there.
they were recording, right?
Say that again.
I said even before we knew they were recording because it didn't used to be a recorded function.
Right, right. I think so. I think that they recorded them before we even knew because it's an audio app. They need stats. They
Well,
need
we should have
stats.
known that they were recording. I feel like people, sometimes we're just naive. I'm like, y'all, everything you are
Once
doing
it's
is
out there, it's
being,
out there.
it's out
Mm-hmm.
there. You sign that term and condition, and it's not,
It's a done deal.
somebody else is seeing all that stuff. But anyway,
So tell us. Personally, I want to know because technology, okay? When we
Uh-huh.
started, all we knew were computers. Now we're dealing with a whole different term, technology. What sparked your interest? And just really, what was your first exposure to the metaverse?
I don't get that question often, but I love when people kind of ask like, so how like when you're at work and you're like, I'm just minding my business and
Yes.
you don't want nobody to like put nothing extra on your plate. Well, I was being nosy one day. So this is what happened. So I was leaving and I happened to walk past a group of guys. There was probably like 4 or 5 of them. And they had on a big screen. I'm not sure if you remember the game Fruit Ninja. So
Yes.
this is okay. So this is a game you take the sword, you're like slicing
Yes.
it and dicing it, but they're playing it in VR, right?
Was it
And
an
so
Oculus?
yeah. So it was a Vive at the time. That's the name of the system. And so somebody had on the goggles, right? And then they had the controllers and they're like slashing and crashing, and everybody's cracking up like they're dying because the screen is probably like 60-inch TV and it was after hours. And this was my first exposure to that team, which was the emerging tech team at USA Today. So I'm like, they're like, hey, you want to play? And I'm like, sure. Like I'm supposed to be going home, but DC traffic, I'm not sure if you know anything about it. It's
Yes.
horrendous. So I was like, I got some time. Right. So I'm in there playing Fruit Ninja with them at like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. And like I'm loving it. But of course, like with most experiences at the time, I just kind of let it go. It was like, oh, that was cool for what it was. The VR game is gimmicky, whatever. I kid you not. A week later, my manager goes, so you've been reassigned? And I was like, what do you mean reassigned? It's like, you're going to be the project manager for the emerging tech team. I was like, huh? So
Wow.
we recently had layoffs and like they had laid off the project manager for that team. And so I was one of the people who made the cut. And there was like, the director wants you on his team. And I was like, okay. And so I always describe the experience of it was an amazing experience, but imagine being asked to lead the US ski team and you never stepped on snow before.
Right.
yeah.
It was scary and exciting at the same time.
Wow.
And so I spent probably the next 6 months as well as managing the team, like learning. So there was a lot of like after work learning, research, going to different shows with them, doing demos, running the demos, hearing what people had to say. And so we've done a lot of field work, right? And so at the time, we were probably the only news organization that had an internal development team. And so I managed a team of game developers. So imagine my whole career, it was only tech, right? So it was back, databases, websites, mobile apps, nothing even related to VR, AR, AI, any of that stuff, data science. And so it was really fascinating. And I think about that opportunity and imagine had I said no,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Because you could have been
Had
like,
I
I'm
said
scared. I don't know nothing about this.
Or I gotta go catch my train. I'm just gonna go fight traffic. Right? But you said yes and you got
right.
exposure. So it was like you kind of accidentally fell into it.
Yeah, I accidentally fell into it. But here's the other thing. A lot of times people have issues and gripes about, let's just say, DE&I in their organizations, right? So lack of diversity, lack of equity, lack of inclusion. And I would say this team that I was managing was probably the most diverse, the most equitable, and the most inclusive team I've ever worked on in my life. And so it was the pinnacle of my career. Like not many people can say, you know what, while at work, we got a Pulitzer. I'm still blown away even as I talk about it now, right? And so our team was mixed with, white men, black men, Asian men, white girl, me, like like it was
I
just
was
it was just
literally going to
all
ask
over
you
the
that
place.
question.
Yeah, it was all over the place and we were all different ages. So we ranged from like 20 to like 40,
Hmm.
and that was our team. And it was just really cool because as we had conversations on like what to create, the conversations were way more expansive, right? Versus like, let's just say it was just a whole bunch of white dudes trying to build a product. They wouldn't have brought up certain things. And so like, for example, in one of our products, we built the replica of the USS Eisenhower, which is a Navy ship, right? And so as I was sitting there watching the footage, I turned around to the creative director and I said, "So there's female officers on the ship." And he was like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, where are the interviews from the female officers?" And his face dropped because they had already shot they had already shot the footage before I got to the team. And he goes, "Bianca, like no one even thought to get their stories." And I was like, "Well, how sway?" Right?
Right.
Like like how is that even possible? But in that one breath of me just reviewing the footage, I'm like, all right, I want to hear what they got to say. Like they're there. Like it's not like you don't have any at all on the ship, but no one had the foresight to get their stories. And it's not like, if you know anything about naval ships, sometimes they're docked where they're supposed to be and sometimes they're out in the ocean. And so it's not like we could have sent another team back out there to go get their stories. It is what it is. We just had to work with the footage. And so that's where DE&I is really helpful when it comes to tech and just storytelling, like to really map out what is it that you want to say, what do you want to share. And so I'm glad that I accidentally fell into this, right? And so even our last product that we built while I was there, USA, the Wall VR, we told the stories of migrants walking through Mexico, from Mexico, or even cities, any countries in Central America, and like their journey of what it takes to actually get across the border. I'm not sure if you remember at the time, our goal in putting out that project was to influence Congress and how they funded the wall, and like hopefully got them to realize to not fund the wall because you realistically can't even put a wall from California to Texas. It's geographically impossible. Not even talking about politics. You got, massive state parks. You got like a religious statue that's very similar to the Christ statue in Brazil that a lot of people don't know about. So the wall would have had to go through that. Like there was just all crazy stuff. So we talked about eminent domain. We talked about border control. We talked about endangered species. We talked about food. We talked about drugs. We talked about rape, unfortunately. And like all these stories were left out of the narrative of what was on the news. And so I'm grateful that I fell into this work because it's more than just technology and how to make a buck, right? But you really can tell some stories in a way that make people pull off the headset and cry. And that's what we did. And so that's why that piece means a whole lot to me. It means a lot to my career. But I'm just thankful that God helped me accidentally fall into this thing so that I can share with people who look like us and even people who don't look like us who are even listening to this, is that this is bigger than a money play. right? Like you really can make people feel something, like the empathy of it. And so that's the part about it that just makes, like, warms me up inside. It's just, there's so much you can do. You just got to be intentional. And like you said, it got to make sense.
And impact, like how you make an impact. I love that about the stories, on the naval ship and stuff like that, because we need our voices in the room to even ask the questions, right? Like there's just so much. This happens to a lot of us, especially I think Black women, because we see the world through a specific type of lens. It's not that, we are magic, but you know what I'm saying? But we get to see the women's side, and we see the ethnicity side, right? Like all the, the race side, all the sides, whatever kind of Black woman you are. You might be from the Caribbean, you might be from, Richmond, California, and so we just see things different. So our lens is it's already diverse, because we are looking like, okay, so what happened here? Well, why we didn't ask that question? And what about this side of it, And so I think as we're talking about the metaverse, like, are you seeing that there is a lack of Black presence adopting the metaverse?
Yes.
Or what?
Yeah, adopting and also creating, right? So I'm a big fan of creation and adoption at the same time. There was a study that I was looking at recently. I think they said it was like 20% of all creators for Metaverse and kind of like Web3 are women and people of color. So still 80% of this is being controlled by people who don't look like us. And so what I think is really important, and I keep saying this over and over again, even if you don't know where to start, get started somewhere. And getting started somewhere looks like a Google search, Metaverse plus whatever it is that you do, coming to a training class. I do like a free Zoom webinar every 2 weeks just to teach people like what is the Metaverse, to start introducing them. And then I actually have one where I bring them inside my Metaverse environment and we start talking about how the Metaverse impacts their business. And I think that for Black people, I don't think it's so much women, but Black people in general, so some men, it's like we almost sit on the fringes of society, and we kind of look in and we're like, all right, is this safe enough for us yet? And so I want to encourage everyone, don't worry about if it's safe, get in there and make it safe.
Yeah.
Right. Get in there and make it work for us. And so I actually wrote this post on Facebook this week about people fears of getting in. So specifically Black people, and just kind of talking about technology. You know how like when you go to the bathroom and you try to put your hand under the faucet and the water don't come on? All right. I'm about to blow your mind. So Kim, get ready.
Okay.
So inside the faucet, there's technology. There's an algorithm that recognizes skin tone. When Google built that algorithm, they did not include Black people in the testing.
Wow.
Right.
I so believe it.
Right. So I need you to have that sink in, right? So it's an older algorithm that is many, many years ago. But just think about the impact of that. It's a very simple thing, but because of their lack of insight of including us or people with darker skin, to make sure that when we put our hand under the faucet, when we put our hand under the paper towel machine, that it actually comes out. If Black people don't get involved in the metaverse and Web3 technology, people will continue to create technology that does not work for us because they never thought to access.
That's like that Netflix documentary Coded Bias. They were talking about that, how like we weren't getting the facial recognition,
right?
Or the police were, falsely, because of just different artificial intelligence stuff.
But now Bianca, thinking,
what you think about that? Because she went to the bathroom and it didn't come out that time.
That it did not come on. That was racism in the faucet.
Yes.
Yeah. The faucet.
Yes. You said a mouthful earlier. Like you were like, if I had not said yes, right? God accidentally. That wasn't an accident.
No, he's intentional.
He was preparing you for such a time as this.
Come on, somebody.
And that representation matters, even with the darn faucet.
Seriously.
Yes.
And we're gonna be walking around here with dirty hands. Come on.
But like she just said, her asking the stories about the stories, right? The women. If no one's in the room saying, hello, skin tone is more than just I mean, we might get a little pass because we have a lot more of like our Middle Eastern and like,
Right.
Eastern Asian folks that are in there. They got same color skin as us, a lot of them. But that ain't enough. We have other things that we need to make sure we're represented and make sure that we're in there.
Yes, so let me give you a more current example, especially about the goggles and like computers. So one of the platforms that we primarily push people towards, right?
Mhm.
They have been tracking usage, right? So they've been tracking usage and comparing whether or not people are actually coming into the environment with the headsets or they're using their computers. What they're seeing is that more people are using their computers. What does that say? More people who don't have access to these headsets are interested in these worlds. And so now they're diverting their resources to give us more tools for people who are using their computers. And that's huge because I think that there's a lot of Black people who are still like, I don't know why I would buy a headset. I can't really justify the cost. But if I can get on with my computer and I can get on my phone, I can go check it out before I go buy the headset. And so even that is powerful, right? Being able to just get in to influence their data so that then they start shifting their resources to build systems that are more equitable for us. And so that's just the beginning of it. And like I was blown away when the guy who's the head of community there shared it with us. And I was just like, this is the start, right? But we need to push more Black people, more women, more men, more kids into the metaverse so that we can start changing how the technology is built, definitely giving our voice, of course, not giving away too much IP, right? But influence it, but not only influencing, getting inspiration and start building our own.
Oh,
Like I came
yes.
across two metaverse platforms that are Black owned, and like I'm so here for it. One is called Zeroverse. So I'm actually friends with the founder. There's a girl who's based here in Baltimore where I am, as well as Raleigh, I think somewhere in North Carolina, so Durham or Raleigh. And then the other one that I came across is Euphoria. So EARPHIA. And so they're building like luxury looking, like the buildings look amazing. And so my goal in going to podcasts and being in media is just really highlighting creators and especially creators of color. Because like you said, if we're only representing about 20% or so, like I want to put the spotlight on as many of them as possible. And so being that translator and also part architect, right? Helping
Yes.
people really envision what it would look like to go to the metaverse, right? Or to bring the metaverse to them as well as Web3 technology.
Two questions came to mind.
Sure.
One is if we want to start creating, if we want to be creators, what does that path look like? And if we want to just learn about it and get involved, like what are those first steps? So I know those are two separate things, but I want to just, those are things I want to, because people, when they ask, like, how do I get into tech? I want to put them down a path that's going to get them into the latest and greatest innovation, as opposed to being over here and do tech support over here like I started. You ain't going to start the way I started. You're going to start a different way.
Yes, 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 yes. So, all right. So let me take the creator part first. There's a couple of different ways to do it. Most of the worlds are built with Unity game engine, Unreal game engine, game engines, basically, right? Then you have augmented reality. Facebook is doing a really excellent job. They have something called Spark AR. And so prior to this summer, they had contests where they were actually paying people to create filters for them. So I would say for anyone who's interested, any of our virtual digital artist friends out there who are interested in creating filters, that they definitely get onto that. But looking for programs where you can start building worlds, you can start building filters, and just creating clothes. Like there's going to be so for those clothing designers out there, there's going to be so much money for you, right? And so you had mentioned this Aries with before we got on about church and how you spend so much time picking out your outfit, right? And so for some people, that's going to be a big deal, right? And so creating something or putting on clothing that represents them so that they show up in these virtual environments so that it's like I'm sending my digital representative and she or he got to be fly, right? So there's so many opportunities for people who create. So I actually have like there is an image that I have that I lifted from like Medium. So there's some guy on Medium and I have the credit to it. So I don't want nobody like, you stealing information. No, it's not that. Like I always credit that guy. But I talk about that in my class of like the different jobs of people creating and bridging physical world with the digital world, right? Now, when it comes to learning, I think that it's one simple as doing a Google search to see what is available to you. So I think I mentioned this earlier with Metaverse plus whatever it is that you do, Web3 plus whatever you do, just to get inspiration. You can come to like a training class like mine. So I do mine every 2 weeks. That's free. So that's on Zoom. And then there's a paid one that we do inside the Metaverse. I think it's just learning is learning, right? Like just take the first step of do the Google search, take the first step of listening to podcasts, take the first step of like trying to build something that maybe you haven't built before. And so there's so much that I could say about this. All I'm just gonna say is just get started.
It's
Come to your class.
Yes.
Mhm.
How I said again?
Come to your class.
Yeah, come to my class. And so while I got started in 2016, right? And I kind of kept up with speaking, on different platforms or whatever like that. Even with my business, Brick Rose Exchange, which we have a physical space in Baltimore, we started doing online events in December 2021. And so we started bringing people inside the metaverse to, because we were still in COVID, right? Bringing people inside the metaverse to experience like the art that we had physically in the building, right? So we had like a metaverse showcase as a component to the physical space. So
So
like
wait,
there's
say that again.
tons of
You had
things that
a
you can do in this.
hold on. You said you had a metaverse, like an art gallery. Is that what you said?
So in our physical space, we actually had a show in December, right? So artists brought their work and put it on our walls. We also had a component where art collectors who could not physically come here in December meet the artists in the metaverse with their images. So they talked about their work. And so that was like the first installation that we did. Kim, your face is hilarious.
Y'all need to watch her on YouTube if you're not, because she is.
Because now
her
I'm
face
over
is
here
Yes.
picturing
in
it
awe.
like, so they really were there virtually, like you all, the artwork was there. So these buyers or collectors, they can see the art without having to physically be in the space and place.
Yeah, and that was our first installation inside the metaverse. And so we've done events from December 2021 up until now, and we'll continue to do them, working with different brands and working with different artists and creatives, working with, small businesses who want to meet people from all over the world. And so that's how we're leveraging specifically the metaverse with our business, our physical event space here in Baltimore. And so the next level is Web3 technology. And so I got a ton of stuff up my sleeve, and people going like, "Oh, show me how to do that." I'm like, "Yeah, come to the class."
I have a master class.
Yes.
Yeah,
And we're
come
going to
to
make
this
sure
class.
to put a link to your class information and
'Cause
all
I'm
your.
coming.
Because I'm like, okay,
Okay.
yeah, that's a great resource. Now I'm like, okay, let me get up on here and find out what's going on. Because I'm really curious. I mean,
Yeah.
I have these kids that are all up in the metaverse, and I'm like, we're gonna make a resume, y'all, and everything. But I want to know, how to leverage that. We could be leveraging for both Black girls, we could be leveraging for all kind of stuff. So
Because
education is powerful.
Well,
you said you were
I'll tell you this. Say that one more time.
project manager, right? So you started off
Yeah.
as a project manager and it's evolved. So we both are from the project management realm. And sometimes you don't realize how you can translate that into a different technology, or that you need to transition, pivot into the most technology. So I'm listening loud and clear. I'll be on your class.
Yes, I think you should. And so here's the other thing, specifically for Roblox. The biggest thing right now that's moving specifically in the metaverse space is concerts, music, right? And it's really interesting because I think that COVID, a lot of people didn't realize how much they would miss concerts. And you got to think about what a concert is, right? So while you can watch the artist on YouTube, it's not the same of being in a space with hundreds of thousands of people potentially. But we saw even with Travis Scott and Astro World, it was unsafe, right? And so now people are like, all right, how can we create the same experience but then make it safe? This is the perfect answer and the perfect solution. And so you're starting to see more artists really gravitate to creating or doing metaverse concerts. Like I'm going to Meg the Stallion's Hottieverse Well, in Baltimore, it's at the end of August, so I got tickets. I'm not sure where it is in the rest of the world, but she has a VR concert, and so I'm interested. She's not going to be there. It's just, 360 video and like virtual reality that they created, but I'm interested to see how she pulls it together. I watched the Travis Scott one. You can actually go to YouTube to kind of like check out what it was like. Of course, it was very different when you were actually like on at the actual event when it was happening, but music is really moving. So if you know anybody or any of your listeners are musicians, you better start thinking about how you can bring your work to the metaverse. The other thing too is the VMAs just added a category for best metaverse concert.
What? It's
Yeah.
changing. I mean, it's changing all
Yeah.
things. The way we have to look at it is, as the world evolves and everything,
Mm-hmm.
technology, all that. Like, look at how Versus changed things, just from us being like, oh, we want to be on.
Or
They
D-Nice.
changed how Instagram does live,
This is true.
and just different stuff like that. So I definitely, first of all, we can talk about this forever and we're not
Literally.
about to do it,
Yeah, we can.
y'all. You gotta go get on her class so you can learn, get that 101.
Mm-hmm.
That 101 is what I mean, not one on one, but
Yeah.
get the beginning basics, and really get educated. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you on too, because as you can see, these are legit our questions that we have. So we're like, oh, now we know we're gonna get in there and not just be in here. Golf. I do miniature golf and the with the Oculus, and I do all kind of other little stuff.
Do you?
But there's more to do, so I want to make sure
Yes.
I don't want to be left behind. Like, and I don't think any of us want to be left behind.
We're
so we
already
need to.
behind the 8 ball. So that's another reason why we have you on here, right? People always ask, hey, how can I do this? Like, I only know so much. And now that I know this, shoot, I might be pivoting in a career to
Exactly.
to the metaverse. Okay. I have a wild imagination. So I'm over here like, oh, we could do this and we could do that. And sometimes we don't realize, like, I spoke to a group of boys and I'm like, you all could be testers for gaming. They're like, that's a job. I'm like,
yes,
it's a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you can get paid very well.
I took the boys to, there's a Black owned gaming facility here called Exposure, and he does all the tournaments, like when the teams, like professional esports teams, rent out his space to do tournaments and all that stuff. So he'd had this event like a month ago, and it was all Black boys up in there. It was all Black boys, and they got tournaments. They taught them about the different roles, like what you could do. My boys were like commentators at one point. They got they have a little YouTube channel, girl. So they were loving doing the little commentating the games and showing you the graphic design, how to run the cameras and production, like every piece of like what it is. And there's colleges that actually have scholarships that you can get in esports. So all this stuff is changing the world, as a whole. So we got to get on board or we're going to be further left behind, as they say. So.
Yeah, I want to just say one thing about esports. I think a lot of times, kind of going back to the comment that I made earlier, for years, people have been getting on children about they're playing games too much, right? Not even realize that they were building really critical skills for the future. And these gaming tournaments are giving out prizes upwards of like millions of dollars.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make sure that I say that for anybody who has children who are always on them about playing games, like you need to do some of the research. Like when I came across a gaming organization out of Delaware, they were like sharing with me how much these prizes were, how they train and how they do all this stuff. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. There's like, no, they're literally giving out millions of dollars, millions to gamers who are winning these games. And these are young people anywhere from the ages of like 16 to maybe like 30.
Yes.
So
they're in a recruitment phase right now, like how we do analog sports. You start when they're a little kid, put them in T-ball, go all of that. They don't have time. They're coming from a different angle. They're trying to recruit kind of almost backwards now because they need people to put in these different programs. It's all kind of stuff going on. So I've definitely kind of embraced it with my kids, knowing that they're going to be playing video games. So like, how can I make it where they know that it's not just playing games and they can actually utilize the skill sets that they're, putting, they're learning in real life. That's my thing. Can you take it in real life? If you can take it in real life, then I'm gonna support you, but Yeah. So anywho, all right.
We're
We're
done. Go on
done.
and on because I was gonna say I was watching The Shy yesterday, and she highlighted that where he made like $25,000 by gaming, and I was sitting over there thinking like, is this real?
Oh, it's real.
Yes.
It's real.
Yeah, it's real.
So,
And I saw that episode too. And I was like, I'm glad that they put this in The Shy.
Yes.
so how can we support you and what you got going on? It seems like you got 50,000 things going on. So where can we support you? Where you want people to come follow you at and all the good things?
Well, I don't have 50,000 things. I think this year my focus is just education, right? People to how do I even just get started? And how do I get started is one, you can follow me on LinkedIn. So I post content there. I have a free newsletter on LinkedIn. Excuse me, it's called Metaverse Business Bites. So you can kind of learn about just casually. I have the Zoom class. And so I'm just trying to funnel people inside a community. So like they start learning, they start building, and then it's just like, then I got some other stuff coming. So LinkedIn, the newsletter, and the Zoom class. That's the best ways to follow me.
Perfect. Well, we will definitely do that. Yeah. So we're going to tell y'all what our call to action is going to be. First of all, go follow Bianca all over the place where she just told y'all. And we're going to have links. And then Google Metaverse plus whatever your thing is. If it fashion, Metaverse, graphic design, Metaverse, project management. I don't know. Put it all in there, see what comes up. And then, obviously take our class. And then what's another good call to action? Another one is just stay educated. I feel like don't put up a barrier to your learning.
And don't limit your kids on that plan, apparently.
Yeah, because Kim be on the boomer stuff. So we got to get y'all out of that boomer mindset. Because my dad, he be like, them kids, he on that video game. I'm like,
that's a part of the education too. Educating the boomers, like it's all about balance, right?
Yes,
that's what I said.
But thank you so much, Bianca. We are highly now. I feel smarter.
I'm thoroughly like I literally like I was like, okay, I'm gonna go update my resume.
I feel smarter. So we're definitely gonna support you. We appreciate you for coming on the Bold Black Girls podcast, and we're definitely gonna be in touch. And go follow that newsletter because I'm about to go do that as soon as we get on.